Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. A child protective services case is one of the most frightening experiences for any parent. Don't face it alone. Face it with confidence with Urgent Assist by CPS Protect. You can have access to former CPS investigators to make sure you preserve your rights and protect your family. If you're facing CPS involvement and aren't sure where to turn, their child welfare consultants can help you. Visit cpsprotect.com/subscribe and enter the coupon code SLAMTHEGAVEL for 10% off your first year of Urgent Assist. And this is available in all 50 states. I have another announcement. Bradley's mother, Narcisse Golden, passed away 5 months ago. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he cannot speak nor understand the language. He will then be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul, New York State, 518-474-8390. That's 518-474-8390. Please call the senator as well to please keep Bradley here safe in these United States. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a brand new guest on. I'm happy to have David Shubert on. He is a left behind and alienated father who took his personal experiences of international abduction and alienation and chose to become a family rights activist. During this time, David has been very prominent on Facebook, LinkedIn, and now Twitter social media as he spreads his message to others that they are not alone. He is currently the author of 2 books and another one that is soon to be released in the next 2 weeks titled Parental Alienation Unmasked. Additionally, David has a website for alienated parents called A Parenting Affair, where visitors are able to enjoy reading articles written by experts, watch music videos created by other alienated parents, or even just browse the book section and much more. I welcome you to Slam the Gavel podcast, David Shubert. You have been through a lot and you're helping so many. And how, your journey began.
I'm sorry to say my journey begins, or how?
How, why? Well, not why, but I mean, how does a person end up in these situations?
Unlucky, I guess, in certain respects, because like everyone else that's in the same situation of being alienated, or maybe they're a left behind parent, I was the same way. I didn't know the person that I actually got involved with because they turned out to be totally different than the person they portrayed themselves to be. They basically had a mask of deception that they kept cinched up so tight that it disguised their real inner self. And
Mhm.
before I knew it, 6 years into it, had a child that was born between us, and also I was helping to raise her son. Um, she took off on me, and I wouldn't find out for a few months afterwards. So when I kept getting all these collection calls, that it wasn't she didn't take off because of me. She took off because she was $63,000 in debt and didn't want to pay it, and certainly wasn't going to let me know about it. So I wound up having to go through the International Hague Convention courts with the assistance of the U.S. Department of State. Went through a long battle. Finally, 2 years after the abduction, from to overseas, she was made to bring the children back. Unfortunately, a certain family court judge, in his infinite wisdom, ruled that, well, they'd been gone for the previous 2 years, and it's in the children's best interest to remain with the mother, and allowed them to return back overseas. And I'm like, gee, I mean, Christmas, what is wrong with you? Have you got
Ah,
something in your drinking water that's causing you to think stupid? You
yeah.
know, that's what I'm thinking. And I knew the moment he made that ruling, I would never see or speak to my children ever again.
Ah,
And I was right. Um, she disobeyed every order of the court. We wound up eventually going through 4 contempt hearings, which she had the option of attending via telephone, but she wouldn't even do that. Finally, after 4 contempt hearings, and they subsequently issued arrest warrants on each of them for failure to appear, we went into modification. Now, the funny part about it, we had actually 2 modifications on this whole situation. I had a Craigslist attorney, and I don't recommend getting one from Craigslist, by the way,
Mhm.
but she was so mad at my attorney on this first modification hearing. She heard how the mother had been given a second chance by the original judge. She'd heard how the mother had disobeyed every order of the court, the contempt hearings, and that I'd had no contact whatsoever. You know what the judge did since she was so mad at my attorney? I find no change in circumstances to warrant a change of the custody. So therefore, your modification of parental responsibilities is denied. It's like, really? Well, I wound up trying to get a copy of the recording and transcripts of this. She conveniently forgot to turn the recording equipment on, so I couldn't even get that. So I was able to go back and get another modification hearing, but it took an additional 11 months. I didn't have the Craigslist attorney working for me anymore. I had a good one. And he went in, he explained to the judge the whole situation, and the mother again had the opportunity to appear, which she did not. This judge here said, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm ruling that the mother has to bring the children back and put them in your care. The mother's to have supervised visitation until further orders of the court,
Mhm.
and within 7 days be back here and with the children. The mother didn't comply with that order either. So I
Mm-mm.
went the next several years without still being able to talk or see him or, do video chats or anything, you know. So I was living down there in Panama, Central America, back in 2015 and 2016. Um, I got taken to court because by then, you know how it is when they switch modification of custody, they'll go ahead and also switch modification of child support.
Mm.
Well, it took this other country 3 years before they go, well, yeah, she's supposed to bring the kids back, even though she's still got them illegally. Let's go ahead and make her pay. So she went to court and wanted dismissed since she had the kids. So in 2016, I had to appear in court over there from Panama. The judge goes, well, she's got the kids. And I said, yeah, illegally against
Mhm.
court orders of the U.S. She says, well, I don't care. I said, well, here's the other thing. Your country doesn't hold jurisdiction. You guys have already decided that you didn't want it back in 2009.
Mhm.
I said, Colorado has jurisdiction. She says, I don't care. We're taking it, which was highly illegal. You can't just take it. The state that holds jurisdiction, you have to go to the courts there, and you have to request that they relinquish jurisdiction, and then they can assume it. They've never done that. So anyway, they dismissed the case and stopped making her pay child support. Which was not a ton of money that because it took, like you say, 3 years for them to make their decision of starting to collect it. So they did that. Boy, oh boy, that didn't stop her. She still attacked me. The fact is, I've got to go back to court on her again over this whole mess again next month.
Oh, no.
So 15 years into this, and I'm still paying the price because of the original judge in my case not hearing the 22 pieces of key evidence against the mother and the abduction and all this other stuff, and the fact that she had already disobeyed the course in allowing me to have visitation with him. But I don't know. But back in 2016, when that court ruling came down, I had enough. I was fed up. And so I got on the internet and I found out that I wasn't alone myself, that there
Mhm.
were literally millions of people all over the world that were going through the same thing as what I was. That's when I had a friend of mine living in Panama. He's actually from Venezuela, but he did graphic design. I'd never been on Facebook a day in my life, but he
Mhm.
taught me and he actually set up my website. In fact, it's the background that's on that Facebook website is the one that he designed for me, you know. And from that day forward, I became a family rights activist.
Mhm. Well, you have to channel your anger and frustration into something when these judges are so inept in not either enforcing contempt orders or doing the right thing.
This is true, and there are so many different reasons that these judges rule in this. You know, sometimes it's bias or prejudice. You
Mhm.
know, they may not even like your attorney, like happened to me.
Mhm.
And they'll take it out on the targeted parent.
Mhm.
They may not like the color of your hair,
Mhm.
your shoes, the way you dress, the sound of your voice. But then again, it could be lack of education in terms of they don't really understand the dynamics of parental alienation and how it's harming our children. And then you try to prove it, it's so difficult to prove parental alienation in the eyes of the courts. So even if you have proven it and a judge does have a certain amount of foreknowledge about it, that's far and few between. You know, it but the other part about it, these judges, they can listen to all the evidence and you can have all the evidence in the world why the children should be with you, but they don't have time. They don't make time. They're in such of a rush to get through one case and on to the next one. They basically sweep aside any evidence you may have presented in favor of the children being with you. And they go, well, no, you know what? I don't have time for this. By the way, I don't like the shoes you're wearing. So I'm giving the child to the other parent.
Mhm.
And that's the way it works in the courts.
Yeah.
I just wish they would do like they proposed in California a few years back, where you had the opportunity to have child custody cases decided by a jury, though it
Mhm.
never panned out that way. That would be so nice. Instead of putting everything in the hands of a singular judge, you have a jury of 6 people to decide this issue.
I agree. I just think family court should be abolished and take it back down to civil court with a six-man jury. I think that would be just so much more, hopefully expedient and over quickly, and your evidence would be heard maybe, maybe.
Well, lady even heard how when my former spouse learned that her appeal to the Hague ruling for the international courts, where it was denied, she had called up, there's no lie, and I can't mention the country or her name or anything like that, but she and the judge actually had evidence of this. She called up human services over there and says, if you make me return to the United States with my children, I will kill myself and both of the children. And I got a copy of that evidence from them. And I presented it to the judge and on top of all the other stuff. And the judge says, well, it concerns me about this. But I'm like, what planet are you on? If
Mm-mm.
I'd have done that, you'd have taken away all my parental rights.
Yeah, right. And your job and your career and everything you worked hard for would be down the toilet.
Exactly. So I scratch my head at some of these judges and what's in their thought processes.
So he really didn't his emotion was just very nonchalant, would you say? He just, "We're just gonna leave her where she's at." I mean,
Yeah. He didn't want to rock the boat. He's like, you know what? Um, it's been 2 years and it's so, they're supposed to rely upon the best interest standards of the child. But you tell me, how is it in a child's best interest to be abducted from their home, away from their one parent, their extended family, their
mhm.
friends, their school, their neighborhood, and taken to another country? How is it in their best interest? How is it in their best interest to have all contact with the other parent cut off completely? How is it that it's in their best interest that the parent, the abducting parent, contacts the authorities where they live and says, I'm going to kill myself and the children if made to return? How are these things in the children's best interest?
Mm.
But that happened. And I knew that if I tried to appeal it, which I could have, I would have spent probably $5,000 doing the appeal process. Um, and it would have had the same result. She could have gotten that order, and she could have refused to obey it. So I'd have wasted $5,000.
That's just it. Parents are paying so much money for these processes, and they're not being followed through with. They're being handled by these inexperienced judges, and their dockets are so full, they're rushing through them. They don't care. They just want to get to the next case so they can get out to the golf course.
Well, in my case, the judge, the first day of our hearing was to make sure that we were all in attendance. And I said, well, now here's the deal. They live in overseas. I says they were ordered to come back here. However, there's nothing to say that they can't. Now they've proven that they came here. There's nothing to make them stay here. Can you collect their passports? And he said yes. At the end of that first hearing, to ensure that we were all there, here's the judge said, okay, we're going to have our hearing on in a few days. And he got up, everybody rise. And I said, Judge, aren't you forgetting something? And he turns around and says, what? I said, passports?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. They're like,
Uh,
you're supposed to be a judge and you're supposed to be making notes about things, and you can't even remember something so important like that. So, anyways, so we go through our next hearing. Um, and in that, there it was about 2 hours long. And in this 2 hours long hearing, the judge thought he knew more about my case than what a panel of three judges in this other country did for over a period of a year and a half or so, who had heard everything. He thought he was smarter than them. He had more information. He had more knowledge because uh, this was on a Friday that we did that 2 hour hearing. And it was, believe it or not, Father's Day that weekend. Okay. And he says, I'm going to allow you to have 8 hours a day, both Saturday. I'm going to allow you, 3 or 4 hours on that Friday, and then 8 hours a day because it is Father's Day, both Saturday and Sunday. And then I would expect you guys to be back here on court on Monday. That's when he says it's in the best interest of the children to remain with the mother. It's like, while you went and had, uh, Father's Day holiday with your kids, you knew in advance you were going to rule against me and destroy my relationship with my children, jackass.
oh, yeah, they have this already cut out and predetermined what they're doing with these parents.
And he
I mean,
thought he was doing me such a great justice by saying, hey, I'm going to let you have the kids for Saturday and Sunday because it's Father's Day, knowing that this was going to be the last time I'd ever see him.
well, he's going to hell if he isn't there already.
I hope he is. He was coming old. Excuse my French when I say this.
Going
I
right
know you
ahead.
love him. That old bastard. I hope he's dead. He was in his mid 60s at that time, and that was 15 years ago. So there's a possibility, and I hope
Yeah.
St. Peter looks at him and say, "Nope, down button on this elevator."
Right, right. Well, if it's any consolation, I would say about a year or less after our hearing, the judge died, and, my kids were so happy that he died because he did so much destruction to our family. He
Oh, I hear you. The funny part about it, I don't typically hate people. I I try to put it in such a way I don't hate this person. Instead, I hate what they do or have done.
Mhm.
However, and so there's very few people in my life I've ever hated.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, I don't even hate my ex-wife for what she's done. I just hate what she has done and continues to do. But that judge is one of the short list of people that I can honestly say I hate with a passion.
Hmm.
You
I
know,
agree.
because he had it in his power. He had all the evidence, you know, and yet he decided to destroy my family.
And the thing is, they make these rulings, and I remember, you know, walking out of the courthouse with my attorney because the judge had ruled, "Oh, I'm going to make new visitation orders," and in fact, he increased my visitation. And I thought, "Oh, I was so happy." I was so happy. My attorney, she just looked like, flat affect, like, you know and she told me later, she said, "I knew your ex was not gonna comply with this. That's why I wasn't happy. I wasn't acting happy. I just had a feeling he was not gonna comply." And that's what these exes are doing. They're not complying with, the right thing that should be done, and these judges don't enforce anything.
No, no, they can threaten all they want to, but in the end, they're just like the best interest standard of the child. They can threaten all they want, but in the end, they're nothing more than hollow words that mean nothing.
Mhm.
You know, so it's like, why are you even on the bench? You have an oath that you swore to protect the people that came into your courtroom. You
Mhm.
have a duty that you swore to as well. But there's a lot of these, and don't get me wrong, you've got some great family court judges out there, but you've got some others that are flat out jackasses and couldn't find their butt with both hands,
Mhm.
you know. And it's like, it makes me wonder, what are you doing on the bench? Is it because of the money you make? Is it
Mhm.
because of the fact that you got all your weekends off? Is it because you get the prestige that you've never had before, and being a judge allows you that? You know, they say that a bad judge is nothing more than a byproduct of a bad attorney, and I
Mhm.
believe that.
Oh, that's a good point. That's really is, because they're also, as you well know, they're contributing to their friends' judge campaigns.
Yeah.
That's how
Well,
they.
it's interesting you say you mentioned about campaigns, Marianne, because I remember here a number of years ago, I had one of my attorneys and stuff. He says, you know, not all judges are elected onto the bench. There's a great many of them that are actually appointed. And I said, really? And it kind of made me think that that might be true, because when was the last time you received notice when a judge in your jurisdiction was coming up for reelection? Myself, I've never received a notice like that, so I can be there and vote whether the person should stay or go. But the point I was making at was that he says, here's the deal with these appointments. He says, you get some of these bad attorneys. They are in front of the same judges week after week, and they do such a poor job for their clients that these judges are sick and tired of listening to these guys and seeing how badly they represent their clients. Well, there's not a lot they could do to them. So what they do is they go to their higher ups and say, "Hey, we got to do something about this guy." And what they do to get him out of the courtrooms, they appoint them as judges. Believe it or
Yes,
not,
I believe
you
it.
know, that's one of the things that they. So that's why I say, bad attorney, bad judge.
Mhm, mhm. Or they're, like, so you've got an old judge and his kid is running for judge, 'cause, that's what they do, and, these attorneys will kick in for their kid's judge campaign. And so,
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to look up these, monies that are being put into these judge campaigns, and I found out that my opposing attorney only kicked in $1,000 for this judge's kid's judge campaign, when you would think, if I was an attorney wanting, like, favors off this new judge coming in, I would have given, him or her a $5,000 donation, wouldn't you? I mean, what's $1,000 bucks? That's a drop in the bucket for these people.
Well, for me, that'd be a life savings,
Right.
because like I say, I'm as broke as a $2 dog most times, you know, but even if I had the money, I'm so cheap,
Mhm.
it's the type of a deal that I would probably still only give him $50, you know. I just
Mhm.
don't like to spend any more money than I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
And case in point, why do you think I went with Craigslist years ago?
Mm.
It was cheaper, and I learned my lesson.
Aw, w there's no when you're going into this, a lot of parents don't know where to begin and where to start and what to do, and then they make these, mistakes. It's all in hindsight now.
But I mean, it's hindsight and mistakes. And I know this is kind of a weird way to look at it. Like the person that you married who turned out to be an alienator. And we know that most times, not always, is an underlying mental health issue.
Mhm.
And two of the most prominent ones are narcissists, which is a buzzword these days, but
Mhm.
it's also borderline personality. Those are the two most common traits of an alienator, along with sprinkled in with some others.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we don't know they're afflicted with this underlying mental health issue when we first meet them because they tell us all the perfect things that we want to hear that we're dying to hear, and they're smiling with us, they're showering us with the attention that we're longing for. Before we know it, we're ensnared into their web of deceit.
Mm.
Well, the problem with that is that slowly over time, that mask starts to slip down and they reveal who they are. By then, we've typically got children involved. And so it's harder for us to escape. And even if we do, we're having to leave our children behind most of the time.
Mhm.
And it breaks most parents' hearts to leave our children behind, but we have to if we want to survive and try to bring ways to get them out of the mess too. So as far as regrets, even like with me, do I regret being with my former spouse? Um, in certain ways, yes. In certain ways, I don't, because I got a beautiful daughter out of the deal,
Mhm.
you know, and so I don't regret that aspect of it. And I wouldn't have had her if I hadn't met the alienator,
Mhm.
So how do you regret something that produced a beautiful child?
Mhm.
You know, kind of a weird way to look at it, huh?
Well, a lot of people have said that. Really, on my podcast, a lot of people have said that. I remember going into the grocery store with my oldest, and she's about 7 maybe, and, we were finishing up with the divorce, and she said, "But mommy, you didn't have to divorce dad." And I said, "Please don't ask me to stay with a man that treats me bad. I won't ever ask it of you." And she's
Mm-hmm.
super smart. So, you know, she never brought it up again. But I had to
Mm-hmm.
tell her, I would never ask any of my kids to stay with someone who was treating them bad.
No,
I mean, it's
no, you
sad.
have to have more self-value than that.
Yeah, right. Right. And, with these personality disorders, I don't think these young people are being taught what they really need to know when they're out there dating and learning about these personality disorders. Some of them, they break up with them, but then, some of these personality disorders are so smooth. They know how to rope you in and, keep you happy for a couple years, and then, the atomic bomb goes off.
Right, exactly. And I've often said that these alienators,
Mm.
um, outside of wearing that mask of deception, they're probably some of the most prolific actors in the world. I mean, they can tell you, you can be in a closed in room and they can tell you that the sky is purple,
Mhm.
and they're so believable in what they tell you, and they can keep the act up for days or months or years until they're ready to reveal themselves. But if they tell you the sky is purple, you believe them and you don't even bother to look out the window to check.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that's kind of what happens with these alienators. I mean, they're believable,
Mhm.
you
Or
know.
you may have a disagreement or an argument with them, and they may buy you a present or bring home flowers and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, I'm having a bad day." Like, everyone's making excuses, and then for some reason, we're buying into these excuses when we should just say, "This has now happened for the 10th time. I'm out of here."
Hmm. It is, I mean, you can't allow yourself to be mentally, emotionally, psychologically, or even physically abused by the person that's supposed to love you.
Mhm.
I can understand, okay, occasionally we do have a bad day where frustrations and stresses mount up on us, and it takes its toll, and we take it out on the people that we love. That happens from time to time. But when it's an ongoing basic basis, that's when we have to look around and reevaluate our relationship with that person. Is it worth it for us to be a rug where someone can wipe their feet on all the time, or do we have enough self-esteem that says enough is enough? It's time for me to start packing.
Mhm. And then, you also have another thing that plays into, trying to stay in that marriage is you have relatives saying, "We're this religion, you can't leave. You can't leave because, we're this religion, this will be an embarrassment. You gotta stay in this." People are under pressure to stay in there and suffer through it.
Well, I do agree in the sanctity of marriage, and I do believe that they should be lifelong.
Mhm.
But at the same time, now you're bringing up religion. Now here's a whammy on you. Like there's some religions that actually say it's okay to get divorced if you're a man, but if you're a woman, it's a sin. Now go figure that one out.
Mm,
That's why I say religions distort the fact of marriages. Now I understand that if you're being physically abused, sexually abused, or mentally or emotionally to an extreme, I understand that. I think even God would say, "Hey, you have my blessing. Get out of there. Save yourself, because that's all you're doing is you're saving your life,
mhm,
from another individual." But in general, there's no reason to get divorced.
mhm, mhm,
Get some therapy, counseling, whatever. But the bad part is with these people that have those underlying mental health issues, such as narcissism, borderline personality, whatever, there is no working through it. Fact is, narcissists, there is no treatment to date
mhm,
for it. At least with some of these other issues, they have therapy, they have drugs that they can help them maintain a certain semblance of life.
mhm,
But narcissism, they don't have it.
mhm. I wonder though, if you gave them an antidepressant, if that would at least tone them down a bit.
I don't
I
know.
I don't know, 'cause, um, when I was gonna have the second one, I could tell my ex was, well, he wasn't my ex and he was my husband at the time, but he was, down in the dumps, and I could tell he was depressed. I used to be a psych nurse, but I said, "Hey, why don't you take my Zoloft, finish it off and see how you feel on it. See if this helps."
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, he went from being, I would say emotionally, well, he had been emotionally abusive and whatnot, but he had really mellowed out. And I
Really?
really liked him on that it's like, "Wow, stay on it." No, he didn't like the way he said he felt fuzzy, and I said, "You're supposed to feel fuzzy, you'll feel like that for at least 3 weeks, but then that will level off and go away."
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
he just wouldn't stay on it. Now, I'll be honest with you, had he taken that and and that improved his personality, I probably could have hung in there,
Hmm.
possibly.
Have
Uh,
you ever thought about submitting that findings to, a psychology association?
I've never thought of that.
I would, because they may not have explored that option, and if it can help, why not? let them know about it. Hey, this was starting to help, and this is what I saw before, during, and after.
Mm-hmm. Well, I said,
You know?
I don't know who I would contact or how how you get into contact with those people.
American Psychiatric Association would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. Because maybe there's other
And
people. Go ahead.
you can even Google who are the psychological associations out there, or you can even call one of the psychologists in your area and ask them to give you the referral names of some associations.
Mm-hmm.
But it would definitely be worthwhile to explore. But all I know is that they say there is no treatment for narcissists.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
apparently your ex-husband wasn't a narcissist if that seemed to have helped him on whatever was wrong with him.
well, I think he got worse when he remarried the woman that worked in the courthouse. Then I think that just blossomed into that. You know,
And I bet she was the one who he was filing his paperwork with, huh?
oh yes, and I'm sure she picked out, the perfect attorney who was friends with the judge for years as they worked in the DA's department before he became a judge. And she had told me twice, and I have it in transcript where she told me, "I know a lot of people in the courthouse and I'm friends with all the judges." So I'm like, "What does that mean? What is she saying?" I mean, like, because I was so naive. I did not know what was coming.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, and I'm not trying to paraphrase that, but you and I were enjoying our conversation. We're able to smile. We're able to joke about some of the things that transpired, like as an example with your husband's new flame that worked at the courthouse. But there's so many targeted parents out there that they haven't been able to heal from the
Mhm.
scars of their pain, and so the smile and laughter has kind of left them and stuff. I mean, for them to get back to that point, you wonder what's it going to take before they start to see some sense of normalcy in their life again.
You know, we all had to work through this. I don't know how long it took you, but it just took, um, I had a very good family doctor, and I asked to go to a psychiatrist. I got on antidepressants and anti-anxieties when I was going through family court because it was that bad. When you
Hmm.
have an opposing attorney gaslighting you and lying, and my attorney prepared me. He said, "These him and his wife are a problem to the family law community because of their perpetual lying." So I was well aware, but at least I felt physically and mentally prepared because he never made me cry on the stand. I was not gonna let that happen.
Hmm.
I mean, he was screaming at me on the stand that I didn't know, there was something in the First Amendment, like, I don't know, in grade school, they never taught us all these amendments. We're not in law school here. We're only in grade school, okay?
Hmm.
However, when I had reported him to the new governor, and he actually brought it up, and he went to say the governor's name, and I went ahead and said it. I said the Honorable Thomas Wolfe, and he was very dramatic. Talk about a narcissist. He threw his hands in
Hmm.
the air. Who is this Tom Wolfe? And the whole courtroom bust out laughing. It's like this guy was voted in 6 to 7 months ago. Where have you been?
And he didn't realize I was your governor, huh?
No, no. In fact,
You know,
the lady who was typing, the stenographer, she's looking up at me and she's going, like, that was a good one. You got him.
the thing is with them narcissists, that's he must not be a narcissist because we know that narcissists um, they gravitate towards wanting acceptance and admiration from the people that they look up to.
Mhm.
So if this person didn't even know who his governor is, obviously he wasn't a narcissist because he would have been gravitating towards wanting that person to give him recognition and admiration.
Yeah, that is weird. Okay, then how if we call him a sociopath? I mean,
That's a possibility. Like I
yeah.
say, I mean, you've got so many different underlying mental health issues. I mean, sociopath, borderline personality,
Mhm.
you know, uh, bipolar. I mean, I don't know how many they've got. I'm in the wrong
Yeah.
business. I need to be in the drug manufacturing business,
Oh,
these
yeah.
pharmaceuticals, because with all the new ones that they come up with,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, we're in the wrong line of business because when I was a psych nurse and I was starting out, well, I had done a year of med surg, then I switched to psych, and so, the term personality disorder came up, and I said to the one nurse at the table, I said, "What is a personality disorder?" See, this is just how young people just don't know. I was like, I was already unfortunately married, and I was 28, 29 years old, and I'm asking what a personality disorder is. And she said,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, that's just a nice word for asshole." I said, "Oh, well, but I mean, like, let's broaden that. I mean, plus, we did have borderline personality disorders on our unit, but they were the really chronic ones that were not as, slick as the ones that are destroying our lives." So, there's a difference between the 2. Sometimes you have chronic ones, and then you have, maybe, I don't know, acute, for lack of a better word, that are able to slide by without having to be hospitalized and just,
Right.
you know, hold
Right.
jobs.
And here's the thing about those people with these underlying mental health issues. Everyone goes, well, my alienator is narcissist. My alienator is this. My alienator is that. All alienators have it.
Mhm,
No, that's not true because not all alienators have underlying mental health issues. And those that do have it, not all of them are alienators.
mhm,
You know, so it's kind of a weird thing there. It makes you wonder if they can't dive into that. Okay, we know the two main aspects of parental alienation. The two main ones for those that have the mental health issues is borderline personality and narcissism. But on the other side, people that have borderline personality and narcissism aren't necessarily alienators. Why is that? It'd be interesting to have them dive into that. But the other aspect of it, and I've written about this before, is that there's more than just to an alienator. Everyone thinks, okay, they have to be narcissist or borderline personality or have some kind of mental health issue. No,
mhm,
it could be that they have a sense of self entitlement where they
mhm,
should be able to do whatever to whomever, wherever, and whenever they want without repudiation.
mhm,
And that doesn't involve mental health. Okay, that's just self entitlement.
mhm,
But the other aspect of it is that they may have unresolved trauma that happened as a child that caused them to react in such a manner, such as an example, it may be caused by their upbringing that they had a family member, maybe a mother or a father, who is abusive, domineering, committed these things within their family, and they grew up thinking that these are normal traits
mhm,
that are acceptable. So just because you have an alienator in your life, you can't prejudge them unless you're a doctor and they are willing to be subjected to a doctor's, examination. You know,
mhm.
myself, I don't know what kind of a nutbag my former spouse is, and I mean, I suspect, but who knows? It could
Mhm.
be the way she was raised.
Right, and I know by the way my ex was raised, I mean, he grew up in a decent environment. His parents weren't, physically abusive. There was no horrific trauma that I know of that he went through. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I think, he is super smart, and I think they, maybe have catered to that. Some parents will say, "Oh, Johnny is so smart. Johnny, you did great in school today," even though Johnny just watered, fed the fish for the teacher. You know what I'm saying? Kids are being
Right.
overpraised, and I think maybe that could have been going on. I don't know.
It's really, it's difficult. I wish I was a medical doctor. I even like, as an example, in my books and stuff. I actually have a disclaimer in there because it sounds like I know what the heck I'm talking about, and I have enough knowledge to be dangerous,
Mhm.
right? But it's because I've studied from what the experts say, on these different topics and stuff, and that's how I'm able to come together with my books. But I put a disclaimer in there that says, "Hey, I ain't no doctor. I
Mhm.
ain't the legal practitioner. I am not in law enforcement. If you need help, this book is for educational purposes
Mhm.
only. If you need professional help, seek it out.
Mhm.
You know, so unless I put the PhD behind my name, you know, uh, I want people to understand, though these are real things taken from the experts. I'm still not the expert. I'm just conveying.
Mhm. Well, when you wrote your new book that's coming out, Parental Alienation Unmasked, Understanding Coping and Moving Forward as a Family, that's coming out soon in June, right?
Yeah, actually, I have just received chapters, 6 through 9, that I have to review and get back to the copy editors,
Mhm.
and then hopefully this weekend or later this week I'll finish up the rest of it, so that sometime I'm hoping, that God willing and the creek don't rise,
Right.
that the book will be self-published and it'll go on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it has a lot of topics in there. It talks about what parental alienation is, and I devote whole chapters to the different topics.
Mhm.
But it talks about the emotional statuses of the targeted parent, of the child, emotional. It talks about the possibilities of what causes the alienator to act out in the way they do, whether it's narcissism, whether it's bipolar, whether it's borderline personality or self entitlement or whatever. It talks about all these different things. It talks about how to cope. It talks about reunification techniques and things like that. And then have a few other topics in there as well.
No, that sounds really good. How long is the book? Oh, you probably don't know that yet, huh?
As far as actual pages, I'm guesstimating well, it'll be at least 250 pages.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
Possibly as many as 285, I'm thinking, but I won't know that until
Yeah.
probably the end of this week.
Now, how long did that take you to write?
I'd like to tell you, it took me 10 years, but I haven't been writing except since 2017. I don't know. I basically, what I do is I research a lot of topics, and I read a lot of stuff, as an example, from Dr. Amy Baker,
Mhm.
Dr. Randy Fine, and people like that. And I just kind of collect. I'm a collector of different things, right? And if you saw my computer, you'd be horrified. You'd be wanting to run as fast as you could, because it's kind of like my kitchen table. I got a stack of documents on my table. Um, that's probably 5 inches thick, that I won't move from the kitchen table because I know I may need them very shortly. Well, that's the same thing with the articles and stuff. I'll take an article from Dr. Baker, I'll take one from Randy Fine, I'll find a correlation, and then I come up with my own twist on
Mhm. Mhm.
and so I've got it. And once it's done, then I basically will put them into another folder for future reference of what I can, if I need them again for another
Mhm.
article.
Because a lot of people say, "Well, gee, how do you write a book?" And I said, "Well, I was just starting with chronological order. That's the only way I could keep things straight in my head as to how things played out."
Oh,
And
exactly. That's kind of like when I did my memoir earlier this year. Believe it or not, I wrote a 71,000 page memoir, the Stolen Memories book,
Mhm.
and I actually did it in 3 weeks.
Mm.
And people go, "You can't write a memoir in 3 weeks." It's like, yeah, you can. And they
Mhm.
says, "How?" And the thing, it's all up here. You have all your memories of what happened to you. You have all your court documents. You have all of your emails, all that stuff. And so you're able to reference it. And so what I did, I took it right from the beginning
Mhm.
of what happened. I mean, I start off with, well, this is what's happening now. But then when I think back, and that's when chapter one really begins,
Mhm.
you know, and I take it to when I first met my wife at the time. I take it to where I discovered that there's some situations going on with her, as far as her mood swings and anger issues and all this other stuff. And then I just took it chapter by chapter, just like it was living my life. Well, that's the same thing with the book, nonfiction book. You take it chapter by chapter, and you know that.
Mhm.
How many books have you written?
I'm on my third one. Well,
Are you?
the third one will probably come out at maybe around the same time yours is, or it might come out in July. But, you know, it's just, a matter of getting everything together and making sure everything flows, that people can understand it and identify with it, and to help people. My first book was like a handbook to help people through the family court navigate through this, destructive system. And as I've found out, and the more I've done these podcasts and talked to people, is just to recommend just stay out of the court system if you can. But unfortunately, as you know, you can get sucked into it with a personality disorder. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are co-parenting pretty decently with their kids after divorce. I know of 2 sets of parents that I know personally, and they're getting along, and those kids are, they're adults now, and they're not as they're not damaged like, what these kids have been, hauled through family court. Just don't go in there. If you can, it's just gonna be a waste of money, a lot of frustration. The greed with these attorneys that are also stoking the fires is what I noticed my ex's attorney was doing. He thoroughly enjoyed filing these motions and getting them revved up to file more motions to come after me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Well, and the bad part is attorneys, you've got, just like judges, you've got good ones, you've got bad ones. My last attorney, I tell you what, I'd recommend him from here to the moon. He was that good. I call him the gentle giant because here's a guy, he's probably 6'7", 6'8", went to college on a basketball scholarship, got his degree here in Colorado, wound up going over to Cambridge over in England, getting another degree there, came back, started doing law. And he's a gentle giant because he knows how to talk to a judge. I remember in my modification hearing with him, he was talking to the judge in such a manner I'd never heard an attorney talk to a judge before. It was almost like he was a personal friend of the judge, and they were sitting across from each other having a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
And he was explaining things to her about all this stuff, and he's going, "Your Honor, frankly, we don't know what to do because his ex-wife isn't complying with any of the orders of that granted her, uh, custody. You know, can you help us?" And
Mhm.
a judge says, "Yeah, I can help you. You've got the kids now.
Mhm.
She's going to bring them back." And like I say, that never happened. That's why there's a felony warrant for international interference with parental responsibilities
Mm.
that's still hanging over her head if she ever comes back to America.
Interesting.
And the funny part about that is because she was ordered. That's why they did issue that warrant, and then they did upgrade it from an F5 to an F4, and they were supposed to be getting a red notice out for her to have her arrested over in the country where she's at and then extradited back here.
Mhm.
But they haven't done it. And I can't get the district attorney's office to even respond back to me. And this was after I'd written to President Trump in 2017. And yes, it took 4 months. I got a response back from the White House.
Mhm.
who in turn got in touch with the FBI field office in LA, who in turn got in touch with the district attorney's office in Denver.
Wow.
And that's when they upgraded the felony from one to another. And says, yeah, and they called me one time, says, we are going to get a red notice out. Nothing since. They won't return a call, an email, nothing. So, needless to say, I'm the victim of a crime,
Hmm.
an international crime, and yet they won't get off their butts and do anything about it, even though they said we've got this felony warrant for it. It is an extraditable offense. We are going to issue the red notice, and they don't do nothing.
Isn't that a shame?
Yes, and guess what? I ain't afraid to write to politicians. I wrote to Trump. I've wrote to congressmen. I've wrote to senators.
Hmm.
And I just wrote to our governor again, this new governor, I should say. And I also fired off a letter since I've already done it once to one president. I figured, what the hell? I'll write off a letter to Biden and see what kind of a response I get there.
Yeah.
Hey, even a blind squirrel gets a nut now and then.
Right, right. Hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. All they can do is say no or nothing. You know, I always encourage people to write, complain all the time. I have put in all my complaints on Google reviews, along with little transcripts, not the whole 30-page transcript, but just like maybe, 2 pages of where
Sure.
the lies are. And I've gotten over 30,000 views. So uh, that's warning people of this corruption of these certain people.
Right. And that's the thing there. We need to, outside of yourself and others, we need to get more people involved. And I mean, the movement is gathering steam every day, but we need to get more, more boots in the trench, so to speak. And that means, and I understand the reason a lot of parents don't get involved that are going through this. Sometimes the pain is too much and they don't want to relive the worst of their situation on a daily basis. I understand that,
Mhm,
but at the same time, for those that are going through that, what I have to ask them, what are you doing to help yourself as far
mhm,
as the area of self healing? I know that for myself, when the abduction took place in 2007, all the way up until 2016, I was a basket case.
mhm,
I really was. I mean, I couldn't think straight. I mean, I became a stone cold alcoholic,
mhm,
and I continued to drink afterwards. But what helped me, and we all have our ways of self healing, was when I got involved with Facebook and started writing my reflections.
mhm,
I there was times that I was writing 3 and 4 600-word reflections a day, and I did that for the first several months.
mhm,
And that in time with the constant writing and stuff, it allowed me to take all this toxic emotions out of me and put it out there. And so, but other people, writing may not be their forte, may not be something they enjoy. What about going to the gym and exercising? What
mhm,
about taking a cooking class? What about having a fun night out with family or friends that you don't even think about what you're going through? Instead, you're just out there letting your mind relax in the company of other people that you enjoy being around. I
mhm,
mean, if you can distract yourself enough, you can start to heal. When you start to heal, now you can get the boots on the ground and in the game and start helping to make this problem go away.
mhm.
But also some of these people are afraid of their former spouse. They go, well, I know, and the same thing is happening with my Facebook account. I know my former spouse is monitoring me, but and she's probably like a lot of people. She's got a Facebook account, I'm sure, but under a pseudonym,
Right.
you know. But so they're probably going, well, my account's being monitored by my ex-husband or my ex-wife or my former spouse's attorney or one of their family and friends. So I got to be really careful. I can't even comment on a post that I see. I can't even click the like button because I'm afraid they're going to find out about it and they're going to take it in and use it against me in court. They're probably right.
Mhm,
Me, I really don't give a rat's tooth because,
Yeah.
what more can you do to me? My kids are aged out of the system anyway. But
Mm,
even before then, it's like I'm going to still put it out there. I just won't put your exact location or your name or
mhm,
whatever else like that. I won't do that because I know her. She'd have me. She'd sue me,
mhm. Gee.
without a doubt. Plus, at the same time, you get some of these people that are very passionate about this whole situation, and they might go, "Well, you know what? I can't get to my ex-spouse, but I can get to his, and I don't want anything bad to happen to her."
Mhm, mhm.
But that won't stop me from writing about the rest of it.
That's right. And I like how you said that, we're able to talk about this and smile. And I've told people I've developed a dark sense of humor over watching these judges as I have court watched and listened to my other friends going through this. And I've said even about my other judge, I said, "Well, I must remind him of some girl that dumped him right before prom." I mean, you gotta have some type of you know, I mean, why are they being this so crappy to you? And it's like, well, I mean, oh, and then what else I found out was there is a side door to that courtroom that leads right into the club. So as soon as they get out of the courtroom, they go right down that hallway, and the door looks wood to match the walls, so they know how to, get there and start drinking, and that's
I
how
know
that
that's right.
and let 'em. Hey, that's how that my judge died. He died of pancreatitis. And so
Really?
on Facebook, they announced his death, so I responded with the emojis of celebration and
Ooh.
and clapping, and I hey, I mean, um, for instance, and along with the dark sense of humor, it was my son's 16th birthday party, and he had all his friends over, and I wasn't recording. I just wish I was recording this because we were singing happy birthday. He jumps out of his chair and he says, "I hate my dad's big, fat, ugly attorney, and I'm so glad the judge died." And I'm like, I was just like, I didn't know what to say, but the next time in court, the ex brings up, "Well, she made fun of the judge's death," and the judge listening to this really just blew him off. She wasn't, entertaining him, probably because she didn't like him either, I'm thinking. He probably
And
held
probably
her
was
back.
thinking, probably thought, what's that got to do with the price of tea in China? Nothing.
Right, right.
Move on to the case at hand.
Right, because, I think, in my opinion, the child support judge wanted to have his position, and
Mm.
she was stuck dealing with child support cases, and I mean, this is my theory, but, maybe she was glad he was dead too.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't want their judge myself. In fact, it's hard for me to be judgmental
Mhm,
because there's so many things that are hidden from. As an example, you see something on the news. Well, this person uh, beat up someone.
mhm,
You know what? They deserve to go to jail. Like, why?
mhm.
Do you know the facts of what surrounded that?
Right,
You know what
right.
was in their heart, their mind? Do you know if that other person provoked them to that point of anger? You know, I can't be judgmental unless I
Mhm,
have all the facts. Plus, at the same time, that's I keep saying, can you peer through someone's door and really see what's happening?
mhm,
Because of the fact that you see someone that's so nice on the streets, but yet um, behind that closed door, they're like a Dr. Jekyll and
mhm,
Mr. Hyde type person, and they're creating havoc with their spouse or their family and stuff. And so when the victim's spouse is trying to, tell people about what's happening, it's like, they're not believed because, oh, how could such of a sweet, nice person do this kind of stuff? I don't believe you. That's why you can't be judgmental.
right, right. I mean, I would have to know the 2 sides of the coin. I always say there's 2 sides of the coin, and you just don't run off blatantly running with whatever you heard first. Come on.
Exactly. exactly, and that's like these parents that are out there, I mean, there's that dog of mine. She's barking at the neighbors. And as you can tell, I've got my back door open.
That's okay. It's not bad.
But these parents, they're going through all this terrible time, the emotional toll upon each of them. Unless you've actually lived it, you don't know it. And
Right.
so it's like for these people that talk amongst each other that aren't living it. Oh, did you hear what so and so is saying? They're crying about this again.
Mm,
I just don't believe it's that bad. How do you know unless you've lived it?
right.
You know, and it frustrates me, and I'm sure it frustrates a lot of people because especially when you're in the height of this mental and emotional torture and abuse and stuff, you need someone not so much to talk to you about it. Sometimes just having someone in the same room that we can talk to and has an ear to listen to us. That's all we need,
Hmm.
many times, but you get some people, I'm tired of listening to you. That's all you want to talk about. Well, gee, that's because it's therapy for me. It's my type of therapy because I get to get it out of my system.
Yes.
That's why you get a lot of parents, myself included, that when I was in the height of all this, and I don't know, I'm going to ask you a personal question, Marianne,
Okay.
because you're probably like the rest of us. Uh, your husband wasn't there, infuriated you, was doing some terrible things wrong. Did you ever have imaginary conversations with that person so that you could vent, so you could put out things like, why in the hell did you do this stuff to me? Why won't you stop? When you're talking to someone who can't hear you, who isn't even there, and knowing you're not going to get an answer, but you still have those conversations. Yeah, did you ever do that?
Well, I mean, I had I had a really good friend. She's deceased now, but I would talk to her 3 times a day, and she was a psych nurse, and she was seasoned. So I could call her and say, "Why is he doing this? What should I do? What do I do next? I don't know what to do." And, I just, I had that to fall back on, but
Mm-hmm,
for
mm-hmm,
people that are alone and shut off from their families, because a lot of their families are like, "I don't wanna hear this again." Okay, we already know
mm-hmm,
you're in court. Do we have to relive this? It's like,
mm-hmm,
I thought blood was thicker than water, and there was a time blood was thicker than water, now it's not.
mm-hmm.
But,
Exactly. Well,
yeah,
it's become a meat world.
yes, yes. It's too bad. It's too bad that the selfishness in this world is, the cause of these personality disorders on top of the family court generating more personality disorders to come out to do the same thing to somebody else so they can end up back in family court 20 years later or so, and they keep that wheel going. And if people would
Right.
learn just stay out, "Hey, personality disorder, let's just stay out of family court. Let's just, we gotta force this to work together. We have to force it to work together. So what are we gonna
Uh-huh.
do until you break the law with custodial interference? Then there's the problem."
Uh-huh. Well, here's the other thing about it. Go back into history and find out when did we establish family courts. It really, in terms of how long we've been in existence, it hadn't been that long. If you wanted a divorce and child custody was to be decided, it went through the church.
Mm,
But then once we got into invented family courts in the 1900s, well, people started learning that, hey, we can make money off this deal. And it wasn't until the late 80s, I think it was, that's when it really took off. That's how we went from being a money industry to being even further to the point that now we're a $60 billion a year industry because
mm,
everyone's got their hands out there wanting the money. Going, well, gee, what kind of services can I provide? Gee, there's child psychology, there's mental health counseling, there is attorneys, there are guardian ad litems, there's custody evaluators, and the list goes on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has got their hands in the pool. And I agree with you. Get rid of the family courts in many respects, especially when it comes to child custody matters.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, because I think they actually do more harm than good. And I've often said this, depending upon the judge, the family courts are nothing more than enablers of the alienator
Mhm.
because they'll rule in their favor, and it's given the green light to the alienator saying, hey, I got the courts on my side, so I'm going to continue and
Oh,
even make it even worse on the actions I'm committing.
definitely, definitely, and when the judge writes no contact orders for either mother or father saying, "No contact via landline, iPhone, iPad," and no Mother's Day or Father's Day, whatever they write, and they'll write that too. People don't realize, or even, go as far as to say no holidays at all. Then you know that judge is an alienator. He's the one perpetuating this alienating behavior because he is identifying with a personality disorder. This judge himself is a wacko, and he can identify with the attorney wacko who's stoking the flames and sees the mother or father who has a personality disorder, and they identify with them.
Right. And when these judges rule in such a manner, there was something I was reading here a month or two ago, and I'd read something similar to it a few years ago. Was that, do you know that what is it, 86%? I believe it's 86%. I could be wrong, but it's like 86% of all people that are incarcerated in our nation's jails and prisons come from a single parent home.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't talk about breaking it down even further, how many of those 86%, how many of them actually came from an alienated single parent home. That would be interesting to find out. Because also, if you kind of, and I'm putting that out there because of what we were talking about with the judge, when they put no contact orders out there, well, now it truly has become a single parent home, and you're adding to the situation where these children grow up not, and one of the aspects among many is lack of respect for authority figures.
Mhm.
So they go out there and it's like they'll tell a cop, screw you. They'll
Oh,
tell the judge the same thing. They'll
yes.
go ahead and have this sense of entitlement that, you know what, I'll do what I want and you can't touch me until they go to prison. But if the judge would have says, you know what, the child deserves both parent in their life, I'm not going to issue a no contact order unless it can be proven that it is an extreme health risk to the child, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, or physically. That's the only way you're going to get a no contact order out of it. You know, otherwise, our prison population is going to continue to expand.
Right, and it's expanding also because of foster care. A lot of those kids in there are products of foster care.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, that's I'm sure that's another podcast in itself, but, you know, when you brought up, not having respect for authority, what you just said actually happened when one of my kids totaled his vehicle, and, the older brother showed up and walked up to the state trooper and said, "Fuck off." And I'm like and I said, "Well, why did he do that?" And I don't know. I don't know. He just said it, so the trooper told him to go stand over there. So then he comes back up, tells the trooper to F off again. Then the trooper said, go home now." So I thought that over long and hard because, you know, I was not allowed to raise these kids. Had I been allowed to raise these kids, they would have been that never would have happened. So I called the police barracks and I said, you know, I don't know who the trooper was that handled this case, but I want to apologize. And I described the situation and what this kid said. And he goes, I know who the trooper is. I'll tell him exactly what you said. I said, I want to add that had I been allowed to raise these kids the way they should have been raised, they would not have talked to you like that. So I totally apologize for his behavior because that never, ever would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Well, exactly. You know, I mean,
Y
They just don't get it.
No, no, and the police have the family court system to thank for these, belligerent individuals that are, you know, causing whatever havoc. You know, thank the judges. It's a revolving door of havoc.
Yeah. And the way things are going, in all honesty, between these mass shootings, and I know as of recently as this month, we were up to 199 mass shootings. But then I've looked at the way the family courts are run, how our legislation is regarding families and stuff like that, and how it's tearing apart the very fabric of our family bonds and stuff. And I've actually thought over the years, you know what? Screw it. I may have served my country in both the Marines and the Army, but I'll leave this country in a heartbeat because of all this stuff.
Mhm.
But then I get thinking about all the problems we have regarding this. They're in a country you can go to that the same problems aren't plaguing them on the same levels. I mean, I have followers from Jesus, Australia, New
Mhm.
Zealand, Canada, the UK, and some of the other countries as well. But those are the main ones, and they're having the same exact problems on the same level. So I guess I'm stuck here.
Yeah, it's global. This is a global problem that's destroying and creating more personality disorders to put other people through. And here we are back again in family court until we get
Right.
rid of it.
And here's the problem: when these judges aren't ruling in the right fashion, um, basically they're giving a green light to the alienator, and then our children are taking this as a lesson that,
Mhm.
oh, this must be an accepted behavior and normal. And when they grow up, they bring it into their own future families, so the cycle continues.
Yes. Yes.
you know and I fail to understand it. And here's the thing: they're not educating our judges about the dangers and the harmful consequences of parental alienation.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I know that in California, they're mandated. The family court judges are mandated to take continuing education on family abuse. Via mental abuse, emotional abuse, so on and so forth. Right? They're
Mhm.
mandated, I think, 30 hours a week. Um, they're one of the few states that do mandate it. But here's the kicker on that: they have that, but they don't teach anything about parental alienation and the harmful emotional abuse that goes on with that. If they would start doing that, maybe then we can get this under control and we can start seeing a significant decrease as far as the cycle of abuse that our children will carry into their own future families.
Yeah, and these alienators are not doing them any favors or their future spouses any favors. I thought I was doing the future spouse a favor by getting divorced and maybe correcting these, anger issues in the kids, which I did. I'm very proud of that, but, still with, telling an officer to, F off is not, maybe it's not completely corrected, but for the most part, it appears to be corrected. I don't know. I'm just aghast at that behavior. I have no words.
I tell you what, I'd smack half of my child's face off if I heard that word coming out of him to a police officer or a judge or a teacher or anyone else.
Mhm.
That is not respect,
Right.
you know. And I know that when I was young and I was in the military and stuff, it was common practice that every other word was an F this and an F
Yeah.
that. And I carried it on until, geez, I think till I was maybe in my late 30s. And then I remember I was at a bar and everyone was cussing just as bad. And it was the type of deal, this doesn't sound very nice. And from that day forward, I quit cussing for the most part. I mean, I don't use the F word.
Mhm.
I don't use the Lord's name in vain. I
Mm-mm.
don't use a
Mm-mm.
lot of cuss words. Um, you know, But hear a child use it, it really infuriates me. It's like,
Mhm.
ugh.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree.
And you can't even turn the TV set on without them using those words. It's
Right.
like, do you remember back in the 70s, the worst cuss word that I ever remember hearing back in the early 70s, and you might remember this show, was that a mother whose husband had died, she was sitting at the table and she said, damn.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Or God damn it.
You, no, she said, damn. Do you remember what show that was?
No.
Good Times with J.J. Walker.
I don't know if I don't know. I've heard of that show, but
Oh,
I
you may not be old enough then.
oh. But, like, I would hear my dad say, "God damn it," and my mother would be yelling at him, or he'd say, "Damn it," and that was, like, the worst thing you could say. That was the worst thing you could say, and now it's
Oh,
turned
I
into
don't mind the damn it, but I won't put God's name in front of it.
right.
And the very few times that I've caught myself when I've done it. I actually kind of duck because
Yeah.
like, sorry about that, Lord.
Yeah,
Because
right.
and I'm not joking when I actually duck my head
Yeah.
because I'm afraid the lightning bolt is going to come down and smack me.
Yeah, I mean, we have to take our relationships seriously, God seriously, and no one's doing it. Now the world is running amok, and like William Shakespeare said, hell is empty because the devils are all here.
I can believe that one, you
Mhm.
know. And they all and half of them are wearing black robes,
Oh, yes. Yes. Halloween
and the
costumes.
other half, we unfortunately married them.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I'm so glad I had you on, and I'd like to have you back on again, especially, like, when your new book comes out and you're ready to even, delve into that. How can people reach you?
Well, probably the quickest way, I mean, they can go to my email from a parenting affair, which is info@parentingaffair.com. But for most people, it might be easier just to go onto my Facebook page, which is Hopeful Father, which is HOPEFUL father.com. So Facebook /hopefulfather.com.
Great,
And
great.
they can always just message me from that page.
That's great. You're doing so much tremendous work, and thank you, for your comments on Facebook and your books. And, I'll have you back on again. We'll keep in touch, but, don't jump off. Slam the Gavels, the podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with David Shubert in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you again, Dave Shubert. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne, for having me on. I look forward to being here again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. You too. Thank you.